Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Tracy Cram Perkins, and our show today is Dementia Home Care. And I invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, USA Global TV and Radio. I am the author of Dementia Home Care, How to Prepare Before, During, and After. And joining me today is our special guest, Joe HILLYER. He is the CEO of Home Watch Caregivers in Tacoma, and he is going to be talking to us about in-home care. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks, Tracy. Welcome this morning.
So how are you doing today?
Oh, doing good, doing good. Appreciate you folks having me on your show today.
So I was wondering if you could give us a little background on how you got into doing home care.
Oh, wow. But I'm kind of the charter member of the sandwich generation, meaning that I was trying to be an Army officer, for many years, a 22-year career. I was trying to also take care of my own father that had dementia, he started with an initial dementia diagnosis, and that became Alzheimer back in the dark ages of diagnoses. And we went through a 9-year journey through Alzheimer's with him, and that involved me and my brother trying to take care of my dad and trying to, have our families and, run our careers and so on and so forth. And, I learned so much from that time that, and the impact that has on a family, because my father lived in rural southeastern Ohio on a farm, and just trying to take care of him and find services and so on and so forth was just unbelievable. And then, after we lost my dad, I lost my little brother to help me take care of him to cancer. And finally, we had to make a choice with my mom that, she'd been on the farm for 60 years, and she was going to have to come, live with me because she was having trouble with vision and, was 80 years old and couldn't handle the farm anymore. And so, we that's how my journey took me to where I am now. I learned home care. I learned, taking care of folks with Alzheimer's and all that from the ground up. And I'm an old country boy. My wife's Filipino, and we wouldn't think of putting our families into a home, or we take care of them at home. And that's what kind of led us down the path of home care. And I realized that after I retired from the Army that we had quite the niche for this. So and that's why we do what we do now.
So okay, you talked about changing senior landscapes right now and how it's affecting people. Do you want to talk about that a little bit to help our audience understand where you're coming from?
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you enough about, when you're going through that journey of Alzheimer's, with someone for, 10, 20, 30, 50 years, that's their home. That's what they're familiar with. They know that, they understand that. And when you take them out of that home, and take them somewhere, whether it's a memory care facility or maybe it's just assisted living, but it's someplace other than at home, they know that place is familiar. They go off a cliff. I can't. I've seen folks, last anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months to, up to a couple years maybe. But it's not the thing to do. You got to stay home. You got to find a way to work with someone like us that does home care, so you can stay at home, be in that familiar place and those familiar surroundings for those moments that, you're wondering where you're at or what you're doing and stuff, and suddenly you realize, oh, I'm home. So, but it's really important. It's really important, to stay at home as you journey through, dementia and Alzheimer's.
And I know you talk about the need for people to stay at home, but what sorts of things can somebody coming in do to help? I mean, what can home watch caregivers or any of the other caregiving outfits out there do to help folks that have dementia or the families that are caring for them?
Okay. Well, it kind of comes in three stages. There's care management, and then it transitions to companion care, and then to personal care. Sometimes it's light personal care, sometimes it's heavy personal care. But I'll kind of frame it first with care management. First, understand that 1 out of every 3 of us are going to be affected by dementia, Alzheimer's, some kind of memory disorder requiring care. And that's a staggering number. It means you or I are going to get it, or we're going to know someone's going to get it, or we're going to have a spouse or significant loved one that's affected by dementia and Alzheimer's. So understanding that it's in our futures, and that if we had someone in our direct family that was, like I did, had a father with Alzheimer's, that I need to have a plan. That's where care management begins. Knowing that that's coming as you get older, begin to slow down a little bit, giving a call to someone like us that says, hey, I may need some help down the road. Sometimes it just starts with, the medicines and helping schedule doctor's appointments as things become more and more confusing with digital medical records and all that stuff. But it's just, having the conversation with us and figuring out, what the need is, when it's going to be, what that looks like down the road. And I say that, having that conversation early, because, everyone knows there's a caregiver shortage out there. There's a shortage of medical professionals. And, if you called me today and said, I need care for my parent tomorrow, and I'm gonna need 12-hour care, 24/7 care, whatever that's going to be, I need that tomorrow. Can you do it? 99% of the caregiving companies out there are going to say no, because they have a caregiver shortage, and it's going to take them time to get a caregiver lined up, the right caregiver, and then or I go out and recruit a caregiver for that type of care, because the staffs are just so limited right now. So having that initial conversation, and that leads to care management, having a plan, know what's coming. Maybe it's a year down the road, 2 years, but you already have a relationship with someone like us. So when you do give us that call, boom, I can have someone there the next day, because I know you, I know what you need. I've already got a care management team that I can put you into. And then the other thing is, care begins with companion care and then personal care. In companion care, if we start out taking care of someone that's beginning the journey through dementia, or beginning forgetful, or they're starting to misplace things, or it's a time to have someone else in their life to help. Doing companion care, it's so much of the time it's just being there, being a friend, cleaning up, helping with chores, things like that, and just keeping on track, on focus, on target for what needs to be done for the day. And and then later, as things become a little bit more complicated, or things begin to change with the body and so on and so forth, then it becomes a little bit more complicated. And that's when the personal care aspect, the non-medical piece of, that focuses around the 6 ADLs, or 8 instrumental or IADLs. And it's a progression, and having, care management team, someone like us in there, be able to help through every stage of that progression through, Alzheimer's or dementia. It's imperative. It's imperative to start the conversation early, and just, have a plan. I got to say, have a plan, have a plan, have a plan.
Okay, so you brought up a good point here. You were talking about the ADLs and the IADLs. A lot of the audience won't know what those are. Can you give us a little background of what an ADL is, and then how to understand how to use that information?
Okay. Well, when you go see a doctor, and the doctor's going to break things down into activities of daily living, okay? And there's 6 activities of daily living that the doctors, Medicare, long-term care insurance, so on and so forth, they work towards, putting you in the box with these ADLs. But there's also instrumental activities of daily living that I like to use as key indicators that, something may be happening, or something may be changing, that it may be time to, talk about care. So, the 6 ADLs, they're based around eating, bathing, getting dressed, using the restroom, transferring, can you move in and out of a chair, out of a bed, things like that, and then continence. And then the IADLs, the 8 key ones we kind of focus on are things like being able to use a telephone, Can you go out shopping for yourself, or you need a little bit of help preparing for your food? Are you eating healthy versus eating processed foods out of a package in the microwave and stuff? Just general housekeeping, doing laundry, transportation, handling medications, and then handling finances.
Wow. That's
It's a lot there, I know.
A lot of people. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. One of the things I heard you talk about recently was what is basically in the aging, what is the future of aging going to look like? Yeah. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Wow. Well, let's just kind of put it in perspective. 10,000 baby boomers every day retire here in the United States. That's a staggering number just to think of. And like I said earlier, of all of us that are retiring, a third of our whole population is going to be affected somehow, some way with dementia and Alzheimer's. Again, that's a staggering number. That might be actually, you getting diagnosed with dementia, Alzheimer's, or our spouse or one of our loved ones or somebody we know is going to be affected. But and again, here in the U.S., there's some staggering caregiving statistics too that just will blow you away. 54 million families in the U.S. struggle with caring for an aging parent or a loved one. And that's folks that aren't paying for someone like my services. That's, about 1/6 of our population is providing some kind of caregiving to somebody, an elder in their life. And, that's a huge impact on, on business. And, it's like a $680 billion impact on business, of all of us that are trying to take care of a loved one, where we have to miss work, we have to take them to appointments, and all that. And that number is actually very conservative. Other numbers put that up there around $1 trillion a year of impact on our economy. So it's, it's a very significant issue. And here's another staggering issue about aging in the U.S. The average U.S. woman is going to spend more time caring for their aging parents or their in-laws than they'll spend during their lifetime raising their own children. You just think about that for a minute. That's amazing. And it's no secret. There's a shortage of caregivers out there, and it is driving up the cost significantly. And I've watched over the last last 4 years, just since COVID, I've watched 15, 20% increases in the cost of hourly daily care increase. So, but when you look at home care versus going into a facility of some type, the cost of aging in place, and dealing with your dementia, your Alzheimer's, and so on and so forth, it's much cheaper to stay at home than it is to go into a facility. And and those costs are just, again, they're just spiraling out of control. So.
Wow. So I guess my next question is, how do you plan for something like that?
Well, that's just it. That 4-letter word, plan. So, most folks, we don't plan. We don't. What always blows me away is we plan to get old. We plan to retire, and we bring together our legal, our medical, our how we want to live, and our financial plan. And we get to the point where we retire, and we don't think beyond that, really. So, what's the next 20, 30, or more years look like? With today's technology and today's advances in medicine, you may choose to retire at 65, and come 95, and you might just finally start calling yourself a senior and slowing down and saying, I need a little bit of help. And so, how are you going to fund all that? And so, understanding your finances, understanding what costs are. I mean, that's the first part. And that's why I'm always an advocate for care management, where, you get that point in your life where you're starting to slow down a little bit, or, you've had that initial diagnosis that something's coming, that, whether it's, long-term or short-term, but, it's time to sit down and have a conversation with us. You talk to that lawyer, you talk to that financial planner, you talk to your doctor. Well, have a conversation with the folks that might be with you for years, as you come to, as you begin to slow down and need help. Have a conversation with us so we have a plan for you too. So, when you make that call one day, you're not calling me at the last minute where your costs are going to be, incrementally more because it's at the last minute rather than having a plan for it. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Going back to cost then. So how do you recommend, or we start thinking about that? How do you recommend we look at how we save for costs, how we plan ahead, just because it's going to catch a lot of people off guard. They aren't going to be expecting this.
Well, I would tell folks to go to Jim Care's website. Jim Care has a great website that helps folks decide when they're going to slow down and, when they think they're going to need this or that type of care, and then plug in their zip code and their demographics, and then it'll give them a good rough estimate of plus or minus 10% estimate of what that cost is going to look like. And it can be startling. It's an eye opener. I mean, just here in the zip code I'm at in Gig Harbor, Washington, the annual cost of home care can be simple home care can be as much as $80,000. Assisted living facilities are even more than that. And if you go into a nursing home where you've got to have 24/7 care, that can be as much as $127,000 to $150,000 a year. That's a staggering number. That's a number people do not plan for, and do not think about as they decide to retire and grow older, and the things they need to do to protect that nest egg, or whatever they want to leave on for their kids, grandkids, their heirs. There's some sobering numbers and all that folks need to look into now, so they know what's coming, so they have a plan, so they don't have to spend those incredible sums of money as they get older.
Okay, now the next question I have for you is, does Medicare even cover any of this? Do they cover any of the home care? Is it just private funds, Medicaid? What are funding streams people can think about?
Okay. Well, much of what I do is private, and so we're private pay, and now with private pay, that can be as much as depending on where you live, that could be as much as $45 an hour, or as low as $25 an hour, depending on where you live here in the United States. And that's paid for out of pocket. Now, folks that have long-term care insurance, they've planned ahead, or at least they've done something many years ago to help plan ahead for getting older. Long-term care insurance is a great way to offset some of these costs for home care when you need it. And I tell folks that your audience is a child taking care of a parent, or young enough to still be able to qualify for long-term care insurance, go out there and get that long-term care insurance. It's worth every penny of it, especially with today's cost of care as you get older. Now, you asked the question about Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare, there are some instances where Medicare will cover home care. Now, there is a difference between home health and home care. Home health, that's when you end up in the hospital and you're getting out of the hospital. The doctor, really literally writes a prescription for home health. Maybe you need this much occupational therapy or physical therapy or something else, where a nurse or a medical professional is going to come into your home, but it's only going to be for up to a couple hours of care, and then they're out of there. Then you may need more help, and that's where somebody like us who does home care. Now, Medicare will pay the cost of home health, and those costs will be paid usually in no more than 6 months. Occasionally, you'll see it paid for by Medicare for more than 6 months, but not often. And then it falls, if you need more care, then it's home care, and it's going to be out of pocket, or long-term care insurance, or maybe there's a couple other things out there that that you can use to fund it. But Medicare also now, and I tell folks that every November, depending on wherever you live in the country, every November when you do the open enrollment period for Medicare, check the Medicare Advantage plans available in your area, and if you think that home care is going to be a requirement in your future that year or a year or two down the road, switch around your Medicare Advantage plans to be able to get their home care option. Not all Medicare Advantage, that's why I navigate one of these Medicare navigators. You can find them in every municipality, and to help guide you through looking for a Medicare Advantage plan that offers home care assistance, and that's usually no more than 24 to 28 hours, if that. Now, it's not offered every place in the United States. East of the Mississippi River, when they first rolled this option out, there was a lot more plans that allowed for a few hours a week, or up to 24 hours a week of a home care. Here in the West, where I'm at, in the Pacific Northwest, there's only been a couple of plans that actually allowed that, and they were on a very limited basis. Now, the other option is Medicaid. If you You can't afford home care pay out of pocket. There's a state option with Medicaid, and if you go the state option through Medicaid, a lot of paperwork that has to be done, and it's one of those things where get started early because it doesn't go quick. And if you're in a position where as you've grown older and you spent down all of your assets and you qualify for Medicaid, then again, it's one of those things, plan or, have a plan with a family member to get all that paperwork and documentation turned into Medicare so they can go through, your spend down and so on and so forth and show that you qualified for, I said Medicare, Medicaid, and go through, everything with Medicaid that shows you spent down your assets to the point where you qualify for Medicaid, and then they can engage your benefits. So, and then lastly, if you're a veteran, okay, I can't say enough good things about this program. A lot of folks say, they have, not so great things to say about the VA, and it really matters. It varies with where you live in the country, the different, veteran or VA hospitals. However, the VA now has a program. It's not aid and attendance that everybody seems to talk about. That's a program where if you qualify, and it basically kind of follows Medicaid guidelines. If you qualify, based on income and so on and so forth, you can get up to, I think now it's a couple $1,000s a month of money that you can spend for home care. But they have a home health care aid program that it starts through the primary care manager that the veteran sees at the VA hospital, and then the primary care manager will put them into the program, and then the social workers that run the program at the VA hospitals, then they'll reach out to companies like mine to take care of the veteran, and see if we can take care of the veteran, and we do what we do with home care. And this is a great program. It starts with anywhere between 8 and 12 hours a week, and I've got clients that have 50, 60 hours a week. The VA, they take really good, they execute this program really well. They take really good care of their veterans, and I just can't say enough. If you're a veteran, you've got to get into that program, or figure out, how to get into that program, despite wherever you are in the country, whatever VA hospital you're dealing with. So.
And can you give the name of the program again?
It's the Home Healthcare Aid Program. I think it's HHCA, and you can find it. Just go to the VA website and type in home care, and it should pop right up. And it's executed. If you're in the East, it's executed by Optum, and in the West, it's executed by Tri-West. Those are the folks that actually will do the coordinating and making sure everyone gets taken care of. So.
Oh, fantastic. Now, my next question for you. Okay, going back to doing in-home care, that can go on for quite some time. Do you also work with hospice when it gets towards end of life? I mean, how does that work with home care? Okay.
Well, home care falls into a continuum, and that continuum includes both all three. Caregiving services, home care, which we do all the time, but we also support home health services, and we also support hospice. And there's always a requirement for a caregiver. Whether sometimes a little bit less in home health, where all you have there is maybe a nurse or a therapist coming in, but a lot of times there is a requirement for someone to help that client get around. Their mobility is limited because of a fall or maybe a replaced hip or something like that, and helping get back on their feet and functioning. That's kind of short term for us. But hospice, we're there at the end too. Hospice functions somewhat like home health services. Hospice brings to bear a tremendous amount of resources and support, as folks are coming to the end of life. And but that doesn't include everything. And as hospice services, we do a lot of this, especially for the VA, where folks just get so overwhelmed with caring for a loved one as they get to the end, that it's like, let us do the hard work so that they can spend quality time with their loved one, as they come to the end. And we're there throughout. Sometimes it's 2 hours a day, sometimes it's 24 hours a day, and then we're doing our regular caregiving services right there in a minute. So it's just this whole continuum, home health, home care and hospice, we're there, all the time. So.
All right. Next question. How is the caregiver, the primary caregiver of the family, getting respite when you guys come in?
Oh, wow. care for a loved one when they begin to need help usually starts with a spouse or starts with a child, and coming in to give care for mom and dad, and it quickly gets to be overwhelming. Things may start out slow, going to the grocery store and going to the doctor's appointments and this and that, but as mom or dad begin to need more and more care, this begins to take, the kids away from work longer and, away from their families and so on and so forth. And, there's things that, and it finally just gets to be overwhelming, or it can get to be overwhelming, and, you need a break. So we often get started with a family where, one of the kids are just, at wit's end, or the spouse is at wit's end, got to have a break, got to have some time just to be able to go shopping or be able to get out and take care of some, go to the doctor's appointment or something like that. And, we'll come in for anywhere from, 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours longer. And, we'll sit there and, do everything that caregiver was doing. And, we'll try probably a bit more, and then, and our job at that point is, okay, if you just need that break, we're there for respite care. We'll take care of whatever you ask us to do. And then, we'll move out and you can take over again. But what all folks learn is once they get that, get a chance to catch their breath, they realize that there's things that, that we can do that they don't need to do, so they can spend quality time with their loved one. And then, they bring us into, for a couple hours a day, a couple hours a week, maybe longer, maybe, and then that, that evolves into as folks get older and things change, we may spend a lot more time with their loved one, and so that they can work, they can spend time with their kids, and they just spend the quality time they want to spend with their folks. And, remember, all the good points, and not all the day-to-day things that, get to be a challenge sometimes as folks get older. So.
Wow. It's just, I'm having flashbacks, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but okay. I have another question based on my flashback. One of the things when it's early on in the care, do you guys, or do home health offer also like transportation services? So like if there's a senior community area where they can do adult day programs, that they can participate in that. Is that something that might be under the umbrella of home health?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Home care. Absolutely. And there's three things any home care company anyone talks to, there's three things that company should offer. First one is transportation, what you're talking about right there, helping folks get to appointments, or just getting over to the community center, the senior center, or, getting out to go shopping, things like that. The other thing is there's companion care, which we kind of talked about earlier, and then personal care, which is a little bit more complicated care. It kind of revolves around the 6 ADLs we talked about earlier with, things like mobility and incontinence and taking care, meals and things like that. So, transportation, companion care, personal care, those are the three things someone should be looking at. And if a company doesn't check all three of those boxes, then you need to call somebody else. But transportation first and foremost, that's one thing a company should offer. And it should be the easiest thing that they can do to help families. And if they can't provide transportation, call someone else. So.
Oh, thank you for that. Because full knowledge of how that didn't work for me. I'm just really grateful that is out there, and I wish I would have known about that when I was at that point.
For most folks, it's discovery learning. And it just, you don't know about this unless you've done it before. And most folks, God forbid, they never had to do it. They never had a loved one have a health issue that requires them to get into this, depth of understanding of, the world I live in every day with home care and home health and hospice.
So, does home health offer like nursing care, like if there's like a wound care, if somebody has a wound or something like that, or is that under the auspices of home care?
Mm-hmm. It is. Well, home health, if you come out of the hospital after surgery and stuff, and there's a wound of some type, that needs to be cared for, there'll be a nurse assigned through home health, a home health company to come in and take care of that. Now, and this varies by state. Each state's got its laws, and it's what it allows home care companies to do varies slightly. But most states will allow home care aides, or CNAs, certified nursing assistants, to have be nurse delegated. That means that a nurse has come in and trained them and taught them exactly what needs to be done for this client. That they'll allow wound care that is nurse delegated to a CNA or a home care aide. So, unless it's very complicated, then still the RN needs to be involved. And that's kind of a case by case basis. And that also can involve things with catheters and other more complicated aspects of health and home healthcare in the home. So.
Okay, then here's my next question. What is the difference between an HHA, I think it is the home health aide, the CNA, I think it's there's different levels, and I don't understand what the different levels are. What is that?
Well, it usually revolves around state certified training. In my state, Washington, and we're very similar to the other regulated states. There's California, New York, New Jersey. There's Florida, and there's a couple others out there. Most of us have a standardized program for it's either called a home health aide or a home care aide, and that is 75 hours of training, followed by a clinical period, and then they have to take a state certification exam so they can be certified as a home care aide or a home health aide. For a certified nursing assistant, that's usually about 120 hours of classroom training, followed by up to 80 hours of clinical hands-on training, and then they again have to take a state certification exam to get a license to be a CNA or a home care aide or a home health aide. So, that's one of the first questions if you're ever dealing with a company where you have some suspicions about the capability of the caregiver. Ask if they have a license, if their license is that, or if you're in a position where you decide to go the private care route, and have a private caregiver, you become the employer at that point. You need to ask the question: do you have a HHA license, ACA license, a CNA license, and is it current? So, very important questions.
Thank you. Yeah, that's I know that there's a lot of confusion about that, because for a while I was confused about it myself. And how did you end up learning all of these things?
Well, like I said, I'm the most unlikely person ever to be in this business, and it's because I'm an old country boy, and I learned this from the ground up, taking care of my dad, my mom, my brother. My dad through his journey through Alzheimer's and home care and home health. My brother through his 3-year journey with cancer until we lost him, and then my mother. So, I kind of learned all this stuff from the ground up, and I'm a retired Army officer. I spent a 20+ year career serving in the Army Special Forces, and all my friends from back in those days go, "How'd you ever get into this business?" And I decided, along the way that there was a period where I got sick, and I had to take a knee from what I used to do for the military and Department of Defense later, and I decided it was time to change something in my life and slow down a bit. And my wife and I put our heads together and was like, okay, what do we do next? What's our next act here? And we both realized that this home care thing, taking care of our seniors and our elders, and taking care of them in home, that's something that was second nature to us, and it was a passion of my wife from when she was younger. She actually wrote a business plan about it in college, and we realized, wow, this is something that we're pretty good at. So we know how this works already. So we sat down with some folks and realized that we could put together a company and put our we've lived this stuff, we put our hearts into it, and we truly, one of our mottos is let our family take care of yours. And we're a family. It's all about, taking care of, our family out there that needs help, with taking care of their seniors. And, what's kind of unique for us is when we sit down and talk with a family, and they're struggling with, what are they going to do with mom or dad or their loved one for the first time. We 9 out of 10 times, we can pretty much complete their sentences for them. We know where they're going to go with things because we've lived it. We much of it, it's pretty personal to us. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That's how I got into this business and why I do this business and why I love taking care of folks. And I can't imagine doing anything else now.
Oh, that is so cool. Yeah, I think everyone has their own story about how they got into dementia care, and it really is a life vocation if you do follow it. So,
Oh, yeah.
um,
And I got to say, with my all the veterans I care for, the veterans are my second family. I served most of my adult life in the military before I came to this profession, and so anything I can do to take care of my veteran family out there, I very, very rarely say no to the VA when they call with a veteran that needs care. There'll be occasionally one that's just, then they know when they call me that it's beyond the scope of what we're allowed to do, but they're going to call me anyway just to see if I know somebody that can help. But yeah, I mean, it's that's my other passion, is taking care of our veteran community, making sure things are good for them as they get older. So.
Thank you. So, is there anything else you want to tell us about?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm going to circle back to my mantra for everybody. It's like, things are changing so much today, especially in the entire medical system, medical care system. I got to tell folks, have a plan. Understand you're going to get older and you're going to slow down and you're going to retire one of these days. But once you do retire, what are you going to do? And, what's that look like 10, 20, 30 years down the road? Because, you're probably going to live that long. So, what's that look like? And just, have a plan. Think ahead. Think about what this looks like. And so you're not a burden on anybody else, just, know which kid is going to be become your POA and going to be looking out for you and your desires and, how you want things to go. So have a plan, stay out of the hospital, and stay at home and age in place.
Oh, so before we start wrapping up, I just have another couple quick questions for you.
Sure.
Since you have been doing this, what would you say was the most memorable thing that you never thought you could solve that you got through?
Oh, wow. Most memorable thing that I never thought I could solve that I got through. It's probably, I had the distinction of being able to take care of a gentleman that was one of my mentors when I was a very young officer in the Army. And I came back into contact with him as he was beginning his journey through Alzheimer's. And it became a very complicated situation with a family member that was taking advantage of him and things like that. And I had to get involved in that aspect of it. And this was early in, getting started in this business. And, because, I was personally invested in this gentleman because he was one of my mentors and he was being taken advantage of by a family member. And it got to be quite ugly, legal and police and APS and stuff. And I just thought, oh my God, this is, how's this ever going to end? How are we ever going to get through this? But we did. And it was all about, the reason, I like to say I cared enough to do the hard things, and I got other family members involved to take care of him. And, it worked out great, and he was able to stay in his home. And, despite all the financial craziness that's going on, he was able to stay in his home with his wife, and they were able to both, pass away in that home. They built that home they lived in with their children for all the years, that place they were familiar with. And, they were able to be there until their end. And so that was something I never thought I could accomplish, but I was successful in being able to keep them there and, fulfill their wishes. So it still kind of chokes me up sometimes because this is, it was really a heartbreaking situation that we were able to make a difference in and help folks get what they really wanted in life. So.
And that leads me to my last question. You talked about adult protective services. At what point do people look at using adult protective services? I mean, what would be a trigger to them that they should call them in?
When you see a senior being taken advantage of, usually it's financially, call adult protective services. They're not the enemy. And a lot of folks, they try and hide from them or stay away from them. They're not the enemy. They're there to help. And they have tools and means and mechanisms that they can employ to get to the bottom quickly of what's going on. And again, if you see a vulnerable senior, especially someone that's alone, has no family, and you think there's someone in their life that's, the things with money or things just don't seem right, call adult protective services and let them look into it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for explaining that, because I don't think enough people understand how adult protective services can help. I really don't.
A lot of times they can just come in, when someone's things aren't going right, they can come in and get all the resources brought together to help people. So.
Well, it looks like we are just about out of time here. So, Joe, thank you very much for joining us today. And I want to thank our audience for joining us. And we will be back again next month. We are going to be inviting Kitty Isley, the NPR news correspondent, and also the producer and, the producer of 24/7, a podcast about caregiving, and we're going to be talking about dementia care and her story. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time.